The Pioneer Newspaper, Part 2. The Pioneer came out in interesting times. Rajiv Gandhi's tragic assassination, P.V. Narasimha Rao's erratic prime ministership, L.K. Advani's frightening Rath Yatra, and its consequences, Kalyan Singh as Chief Minister in UP. The paper's reporting enhanced my pseudo secular credentials. There was no ambivalence or, on the other hand, kind of news and commentary. One of the most surreal meetings I had during that period was with Narasimha Rao 2 days after the demolition of Masjid. The Prime Minister invited a few editors and put on a show of matchless insouciance and detachment. After giving us a detailed rundown of how he had been betrayed by the BJP government in Uttar Pradesh, he uttered these immortal words: "The soul of India is peaceful." Because of this inner serenity, he maintained the nation had no cause to worry. We were witnessing a small storm. I came back to the office and wrote my sole front page report of the Pioneer. I asked readers to reflect on the fate of a country where the Prime Minister's reaction to blood curdling, nation shaking events went no further than "the soul of India is peaceful." The next day, I got a call from the PMO accusing me of distorting and mischief. To his credit, Mr. Thapar never tried to influence me or the paper's reporting, which he must have found disagreeable. His politics till then had remained a mystery to me. His lifestyle and modernity suggested he was no bigot, certainly non communal. I cannot speak on other matters, but at least on the issue of Hindus being discriminated against their own country, he was with the BJP. Thapar's elder brother had pronounced mystical leanings. A devout Hindu, he would send me leaflets, books, newspaper cuttings glorifying Hinduism, which he advised should find some place in the Pioneer. In April 1993, a persistent cough which I had been ignoring. I hate going to doctors on the reasonable belief that it is their job to find something wrong, led me to the operating table at Escorts Hospital. Two of my heart valves had conked out. Naresh Trehan, the eminent and distinguished surgeon, performed delicate open heart surgery. Thanks to Mr. Naresh, I was looked after like a VIP. Mr. Thapar visited me more than once. He was one of the founder donors of Escorts. His concern and kindness touched me. I was off work for 3 months. When I got back, I found a slight change in Thapar's attitude. Thapar, without question, was the most gregarious and socially active businessman in Delhi. He seemed to know everybody. Sometimes I would find Kamal Nath in his house, Biju Patnaik dropped in and out, Sharad Pawar, of course, and many others. He was familiar with almost every senior bureaucrat. I would run into him at page 3 parties. He was also close to LK Advani and other BJP leaders. He believed his promiscuous political and social friendships would be consolidated by his acquisition of Pioneer. I repeatedly reminded Mr. Thapar that the Pioneer was a newspaper desperately trying to carve out some space in a near saturated Delhi newspaper market. We had no option but to push the envelope. We had to be both cautiously aggressive and calculatingly adventurous, which meant that almost on a daily basis there would be some news or comment that would annoy or offend one of Thapar's umpteen friends. Thapar said he understood. He could live with it. In April 1992, the Army Chief General S.F. Rodriguez agreed to give Raminder Singh an interview. It turned out to be a firecracker. The chief called politicians bandicoots and suggested the army had a role in governance, especially since misgovernance seemed to be rampant. We planned to publish the interview in 2 parts on consecutive days. The opposition was up in arms when the first installment appeared. Parliament was disrupted. George Fernandez demanded Rodriguez's resignation. The government was embarrassed. It was the biggest story the paper had broken. Thapar called to say he wanted the tape of the interview. And he also asked me not to print the second part till I heard from him. By then, the paper had announced that the final portion would be carried the following day. When this did not happen, Delhi, a city of rumors, was buzzing with reports of how pressure had been put on me by the government via Thapar to drop the second part. I called up Mr. Thapar, telling him his paper was looking pretty stupid and spineless. To maintain our credibility, we needed to print the second part immediately. He asked me to wait till the evening. What Thapar had been doing in the interim period was to yield to the government's request to hear the full interview and then take a call. Since the objectionable bits had already been carried, I got the tape back from Thapar saying I could go ahead. He was neither pleased nor displeased with the scoop his paper had pulled off. Malavika Singh, better known as Mala Singh, probably Delhi's best networked journalist. Mala in 1993 was presiding over a mini media empire comprising a number of business and niche publications owned by Ashok Advani of Business India Group. A new channel by TV had been announced. As with everything Mala does, she went about the task with flamboyance and flair. Interestingly, as the launch date neared, By TV had no transponder in the sky. The Pioneer carried a small story pointing out this critical lacuna. Mala was furious. She complained bitterly against me. She did not deny the veracity of the report but felt it undermined her channel. Mr. Thopper wrote me a nasty letter criticizing the paper for printing speculative stories. Fortunately for me, a few days after the Pioneer report, several other papers confirmed what we had written. I could not make up my mind whether I should reply to the letter underlining the accuracy of our coverage. It would have meant an argument with Mr. Thopper, which I thought best to avoid. I rang up Thopper's secretary to inform him I had received this letter. I never replied to it, adhering to my policy of sidestepping confrontations with the proprietor on minor matters. Malvika Singh, I felt, was a minor matter. An evening darbar on most days was the routine at the Thopper's house. A couple of groupies would attend. Thopper never had to lit his cigarette, never hear his views contradicted or questioned, never felt the need to look after the company. They did it themselves. It was like a Mughal emperor's mahfil with Thopper presiding as the emperor. I went once. Despite the finest food on offer, the feudal gathering was boring, strained, and pointless. Even the jokes were stale. Thopper relied on a CEO who knew very little about newspapers or publishing, and he and I soon fell out. I decided to ignore him and get on with my work, which made the gentleman even more miffed. He complained regularly to Thopper about me, but I paid no attention, for I felt the shrewd proprietor would see through his game. I overestimated Thopper's ability in this regard. Sometime in May 1994, Thopper called for a Sunday afternoon luncheon meeting at his residence. I and the entire senior management team were present. The lunch was hot, but the atmosphere was cold. After lunch, we got down to reviewing what progress the paper was making. The CEO launched a vitriolic attack on the editorial, suggesting the Pioneer's growth was hampered by inferior content. I was astounded. I let him go on with the tirade, to which I found Thopper listening intently. He appeared to be in agreement with the CEO, but never said so. All this while, I sat back and took the unfair punches. And then it occurred to me that the CEO's script for the afternoon meeting had probably been discussed and cleared. It was a setup. At some point, I attempted to intervene and make my case. Thopper raised his voice by quite a few decibels and instructed me to let the CEO continue speaking. The raising of the voice by the proprietor was a clear snub to me in front of the Pioneer team. Being sacked by a proprietor is familiar to me. However, there has never been any public or private altercation or unpleasantness between me and my proprietor. Making a scene is not my scene. We have parted on generally friendly terms. I have never shouted at my proprietor. My proprietor has never shouted at me. Courtesy and good manners have been the hallmarks of the falling out. Moreover, I don't like anybody, absolutely anybody, shouting at me. I had two options: shout back or quit the meeting. I opted for the latter. I had neither the inclination nor the stomach to get into a slanging match with Mr. Thopper. So I picked up my papers and left without saying a word. Thopper was shocked and stunned. If I had answered back politely, he could have taken it, I was later told. But walking out of the meeting, called by Mr. Thopper, the show of defiance to a man who, above all else, was a stickler for deference and obedience was unheard of in any of the Thopper companies. Since it was Sunday, I came straight home. My telephone was silent. No one called me, neither did I call anybody. Nevertheless, news of my insolence had spread like wildfire. The CEO was gloating the next day when I went to work. I provided a full account of the meeting to my colleagues at the morning conference. After a brief discussion of the implications of my walkout, I announced it was business as usual. We had a paper to produce. Besides that task, it was my responsibility to insulate the staff from getting caught up in my problems with Thopper. I would deal with those by myself. I received full support from my colleagues and also some advice. Try and make up with the old man. I promised I would try. Information trickling out from Thopper's side was unequivocal. I was guilty of serious misbehavior. I had insulted the great industrialist, as someone put it to me, not one to one, but in front of a dozen of his employees. The boss was livid. I was toast. Was there any hope for me? If I prostrated in front of him and begged for forgiveness, maybe. Instead of begging forgiveness, I wrote Mr. Thopper a letter. I thanked him for the great concern he had shown during my illness. I then offered an olive branch. As far as the incident, that is, walkout, is concerned, an explanation is necessary. I felt concerned, and instead of getting into an argument with you, I left the meeting. No disrespect was intended. Although I concede that that is not the way it might have happened. What earthly reason could I have to offend you? With your support and guidance, the Pioneer has already become a major newspaper in Delhi. Indeed, we might have created an institution which could be the launching pad for other media ventures. Despite its many weaknesses, for which I take full responsibility, I am proud to be the editor of your paper, and you, I hope, are proud to be its owner. A couple of days after I dispatched the olive branch, I had a short, curt, to the point meeting with Thopper. What he told me was revealing, for it sums up the attitude of most proprietors. He said, "You are manager for me, a good manager, but just a manager. If you leave, I will find another manager. You are not indispensable." I thought for a moment to inform him that newspapers are not bags of cement or ceiling fans. Sure, you need a manager, but he has to be a very special manager. Sensing Thapper's mood and determination to get rid of me, I asked when he would like me to leave. Tomorrow, he replied. Thank you for listening. There was no ambivalence or, on the other hand, kind of news and commentary. AMBIVALENCE, ambivalence means the state of having mixed feelings or contradictory ideas about something or someone. Ambivalence means uncertainty. The Prime Minister invited a few editors and put on a show of matchless insouciance and detachment. INSOUCIANCE, insouciance means indifference, casual, lack of concern. Insouciance means a relaxed way of behaving without feeling worried or guilty. Since it was Sunday, I came straight home. My telephone was silent. No one called me, neither did I call anybody. Nevertheless, news of my insolence had spread like wildfire. INSOLENCE, insolence means rude behavior. Information trickling out from Thapper's side was unequivocal. UNEQUIVOCAL, unequivocal means clear, leaving no doubt. Unequivocal means unambiguous. The CEO launched a vitriolic attack on the editorial, suggesting the pioneer's growth was hampered by inferior content. Vitriolic means filled with bitter criticism or malice. I was astounded. I let him go on with the tirade, to which I found Thapper listening intently. Tirade. TIRADE. Tirade means a long angry speech of criticism or accusation. Thank you very much.